It's very good. Why? The mass of people don't know exactly what's going on. They at least don't have the taxes, and they keep getting the services. They're happy. The rich are equally happy because they're getting what they want. They don't pay, but they get a little extra bonus. The money they don't pay in taxes is the money they lend to the government for the deficit. That's why rich people don't mind deficits. They win twice. What you don't, if the government wants to get money to pay for its programs, it could go to the rich in business and tax them. It doesn't do that. Instead, it borrows the money from them. At this point, if we had time, I would again play the national anthem. If you can understand what I just told you. A deficit is a service to the rich. I'll give you a calculation, very simple, to illustrate. Okay? In the United States, there is this thing. Merrill Lynch, and in conjunction with a couple other firms, keeps a tab on the richest people in the United States. They actually keep a tab on the richest people around the world. These people have a name, HNWI, High Net Worth Individuals. Okay, high net, I didn't make this up.
No,
I'm just reporting. What is a, by the way, in case you find this sexy, there is a UHNWI, which stands, I didn't make this up either, ultra high net worth. See that? You either cry about this system or you laugh. You have to, one or the other. If you do neither of them, you need help. Okay, so high net worth individual. What is a high net worth individual? That is a citizen of the United States who has at least $1 million or more dollars in his or her stock portfolio. Ultra high net worth is a person who has 30 million or more. That's the difference. Okay? How many high net worth individuals in the United States were there in 2009, the last year for which we have numbers? 2.9 million. In other words, less than 1% of the population in the United States are high net worth individuals. Okay? Just stay with me with the numbers. The total amount of their stock portfolios in 2009 was about $12.7 trillion. Let me make sure you understand. High net worth is only references to your stock portfolio. It doesn't count the house you have, the car you have, the jewelry you have, the art collection, or anything else.
Not bonds either.
Just your, no, stocks and bonds, your stock and bond portfolio. Okay? This amount, 12.7. So what was the deficit? The amount of money that the government had to borrow to stimulate the economy in 2009. Deficit was about 1.3 trillion. Okay? Total wealth of less than 1% of the population. Total stock and bond wealth, not their homes. Total deficit. So here we go. If we had applied as a nation a 10% tax on the stock and bond portfolios of the HNWI population, it would have left them with their house untouched, their income untouched, their valuables untouched, their car untouched. And their stock and bond portfolio would have dropped to a mere 90% of what it had been the year before. If we had taxed them the 10% of 12.7, it's about that amount. There would have been no deficit at all. No interest to pay, no great crisis to worry about, nothing to run your election on, no deficit at all. We would have gone to the richest less than 1%. The other 99% of you wouldn't have been touched by this. But you'd have no deficit, no worry that you're going to be taxed to cover it. No need to cut your social programs, none of it. The rich people would have had to pay 10% of their stock and bond portfolio. over the last 30 years, the people with stocks and bonds have done much better than everybody else. They've had the best 20-year run in the history of the United States stock market. So you'd be going to the richest, less than 1%, those obviously most able to pay, and those who have done the best in the last 30 years, and you could have gone to them and said, as a patriotic, loyal American, is the least you could do. Pony up, 10%. And that takes care of all the stimulus we want, and it won't put the government into one nickel more. So when anyone tells you, we have a terrible deficit, we have to cut the government spending, and we have... Stop. That's like being accosted on the street by someone who says to you, I am now going to give you freedom of choice. You can choose whether I stab you or choke you. And you all know that the answer to that is, I don't accept the range of options. And when someone tells you that we have a deficit and therefore you either pay higher taxes or we spend less on social services, you answer again, I do not accept these options. I would like to stick it to these people. That's what I would like to do. And that would solve our problem. We would not have a deficit. And by the way, these are the richest people in the world. Their consumption expenditures will not significantly change if you tax their wealth. Every economist who's ever done macroeconomics knows that. For those of you that had those courses, remember you learned something about the marginal propensity to save. Right? The marginal propensity to save. Marginal propensity to consume. Basic idea. The poorer you are, the more of your income you spend. The richer you are, the less of your income you spend. Why? Because you're rich, and you don't need to. It's very complicated. The rich people will continue to spend because their spending has never been conditioned by their wealth. And if you think it is, it's because you're not one of them. It may hurt your feelings, but it is. Okay? That's the way it works. So there is no rationale. Could the Greek government solve its problems? Of course it could. The Greek government could solve its problems if it taxed wealth. Greece, the wealth in Greece is highly unequally distributed. There's a relatively small part of the Greek population that is extraordinarily wealthy. What about them? What about them? In Greece, the problem was what I told you. Politicians, by the way, right-wingers, left-wingers, make no difference. They all borrowed the money and spent it. When Greece became part of the European Union, everybody felt, okay, they're part of the European Union, all those rich countries, France, Germany, will back them up. So we'll lend to the Greek. Wonderful, the Greek government said, solve all our problems, keep lending. We'll keep the masses happy by giving them money and not taxing them, giving them programs. The rich will be happy, we'll give them what they want, we'll never tax them. We borrow, we borrow, we borrow, we borrow, we borrow, until the day came when the lender said, this is getting out of hand here. At that point, the Greek government could have made a decision. And that was, okay, we have to cut back on our lending, our borrowing, excuse me. And the way we'll do that without hurting the spending of our government is to raise taxes on the rich. Could have done that. You might even have expected it. The Greek government is a socialist party. The PASOK is a socialist party, right? Runs Greece. Won the election. They're in power, right now. The austerity, the raising of taxes on the average Greek citizen, and the cutting back of government programs and government employment, which is severe in Greece, is being implemented by the Socialist Party of Greece, whose leader is a man named Papandreou, who comes from a long family of Papandreous. His father and his grandfather were leaders of Greece. So it's an old, established, political, leftist family. Okay? Yorgos George Papandreou, the current prime minister, was a student of economics at Amherst College in Massachusetts. And while there, took courses from me. forum.
You should have done a better job.
I should have done much better. I was invited and I went to Greece in May of this year. Right in the middle of all the crisis in Greece. I went to give lectures at the University of Athens. And at a certain point, the professors who invited me learned, I don't know how, that I had been the teacher of the Prime Minister and told me that I might not be allowed in. I don't know what you say under those moments, but I decided I would go, and the worst that they would do is they would not let me into the airport, and then I'd go somewhere else in sunny Southern Europe and have a nice time. But there was no problem. I went in, nobody bothered me, and I gave my lectures at the University of Athens, in which I said all the things I just said to you.
Φίλες και φίλοι, λεφτά υπάρχουν. Λεφτά υπάρχουν.